Was the Quran and Hadith written after the Prophet Muhammad's death? And how do we know it wasn't changed? Alright? So first of all, the Quran, let's talk about the Quran first. The Quran was written during the lifetime of the Prophet. So what happened was the revelation would come down over a period of 23 years. Every time a revelation came down, the Prophet himself would memorize it, and he would tell his companions would memorize it, and he would call one of the scribes, like Zayd ibn Thabit or one of these other people who would write, and they would write down the revelation. Every single time a revelation came down, it was written down in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ, and in addition to being memorized. What happened afterwards is, after the Prophet ﷺ passed away, people still have the entire Quran memorized, and you have all these scraps of paper all over the place, and different scraps and everything, of the actual revelation that was written down during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, meaning in his presence and while he was alive. Right? So, during the time of Abu Bakr, 1 year after the Prophet ﷺ's passing away, they gathered all of these scraps of paper together, and all the people who had memorized the Quran, and they constructed a master copy of the Quran. And that master copy was kept with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. So it means that it was kept from day one, it was compiled from day one. 1 year after the Prophet's time, it was already written, and it was just recompiled again into one form and just rewritten from the originals, as well as checked with everyone's memory. For me, one of the most important parts of this story is Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he kept the copy of the Quran in his house. Right? After him, it was given to Umar, who's the Khalifa, and Umar kept it in his house. Guess how many companions used to go and visit and use this master copy of the Quran during this time? 10 years, approximately.
Hundreds?
No one.
Almost never. Almost never. Why? Because they have it memorized. So what's the point of the copy being written down in the first place?
For future generation.
It's just a good backup to have, right? It's good to have a future, a copy for future generations. What people don't understand is when they throw out arguments about the Quran and all of that, they say, you know what? The manuscripts were not clean, and there was only one copy, and we don't know how authentic that copy was. Even if you assume the copy was 100% authentic, the fact that nobody consulted it on any regular basis, it doesn't come out in Ramadan and everyone's like reading from it. You don't have the guy reading Taraweeh from it or something like that. None of that stuff's happening. What does that tell you? It tells you that the primary means of memorization, or the primary means of the Quran being preserved, was memorization. Because if they needed the book, they would go and consult with the book, right? So the thing is, no other religion has that. And when people make an accusation against the Quran, they can't see anything outside of their own frame of reference. They're like, yeah, I know, but the Bible, we have so many manuscripts of the Bible. But of course, because no one memorized it. You have to have a bunch of manuscripts, and the manuscripts don't even match. They're all changed. They're all different. None of them add up. None of them are the same. Same thing with the Torah. So the Torah, well, we have this manuscript and that manuscript. You guys don't have as many old manuscripts as we have. Because we didn't have a problem, because we memorized it. It's simple as that. Your manuscripts are all over the place. They're all different. They have different writings. You don't even know who wrote most of the manuscripts. So it's very important to keep that in mind. So that's the Quran. What about the Hadith? The Hadith was technically written down after the death of the Prophet ﷺ. But what was it? The Hadith was basically, some incident happens, let's say 10 years after the Prophet ﷺ passes away, and you still have companions there. You have Umar. Umar lived with the Prophet ﷺ, most of the time. He accepted Islam very early on. And all of a sudden Umar goes, you know what? I remember that the Prophet ﷺ, he said this statement, or he did this action, and that thing that I'm recalling right now is very relevant to the situation that we're encountering right now, in Umar's time when he's Khalifa. So what happened? Other people heard it from Umar, and they said, this is what the Prophet did, or this is what the Prophet said. And then that second generation, after the companions, some of the companions were actually writing down hadith. The second generation, they started writing down more. The next generation, they wrote down more, but they had the thoughts and the incidents memorized. So what happens is that all these books and manuscripts that are being compiled about what the Prophet ﷺ said and did eventually gets compiled into small booklets, and then you have people like Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, all these guys. They go and they get all these little booklets, combine them together, and they get all the references from the people who are hearing from them, like 3, 4, 5 chains in between, and they go and they memorize everything and they compile the books that we have today. So we primarily rely upon books like Bukhari and Muslim and all of that stuff, even though they came 200 years after the Prophet ﷺ. Why do we rely on these books rather than the other ones? Because they came and they incorporated all those small little books and the things that were memorized into their collection. You don't need to have the originals anymore. Right? It doesn't make sense to even keep them because there's no need for them anymore. Because you have trustworthy people compiling things. It's almost like, you know what, today we have like a dictionary that's published. And all of a sudden you're like, no, you know what? I want to see the dictionary from 1653. It's like the stuff that was in 1653 got incorporated into the dictionary from 1750, and then that dictionary, the words in there got incorporated into the 1800 dictionary, and it kept on getting incorporated. Why would we have to go to the oldest original dictionary to say, you know what, we have to look at our words to see? It's just an updated version that's compiling more and more things together. So there's nothing wrong with that, you know. So that's how hadith was generally compiled, right? How do we know it wasn't changed? We know it wasn't changed because there's a very rigorous process of authentication that all hadith have to go through. You have to check the chain, check the narrators, you have to look at their biographies, you have to look at all of that stuff. طيب.